Michelle, and as always, thanks to you all for being here. Before we begin, I would like to introduce NoMAA's stroll coordinator and Inwood's very own, Martin Collins, who will bring us a special statement to share tonight. Martin?
Thanks, Harriet. Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We are very grateful to and thank the Inwood Animal Clinic, located at 4846 Broadway and Academy Street, for sponsoring tonight's Stay Home Open Studio by Michelle Asarch. Inwood Animal Clinic is open Monday through Saturday, closed on Sunday, and to keep your furry friends happy and healthy with their great services of Inwood Animal Clinic's quality veterinary care for pets of all ages, please visit their website, inwoodanimalclinic.com, or follow them on Instagram and Facebook for more information. Again, we're very grateful to and thank Inwood Animal Clinic for sponsoring tonight's Stay Home Open Studio. Neria, back to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Martin. And thanks to Inwood Animal Clinic for your support. And it's apropos for our artist this evening who has a new dog, who we may see some of during the evening, depending on how the training's going. So that I think will be, we'll see how that goes. Thanks again, everyone, for being here tonight. Regina, I echo your sentiments. It's been a tough week. I think a lot of us have we were talking, have maybe hit a wall of some sort. So like you, I'm very grateful to be here tonight and to sort of share these moments with all of you. Again, my name is Neria Leyva Gutierrez, and I am the Acting Executive Director of the Northern Manhattan's Arts Alliance. And before we introduce our speaker tonight, our artist, I wanted to thank a number of entities who are supporting the program. New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, New York City Department of Small Business Services, the Inwood Merchant Association, Uptown Collective, and Heights Sites. Thanks to all of these wonderful entities for supporting us and for supporting our community. We are infinitely grateful. And again, I just want to say for the second time how happy I am to be with you all tonight. It's really been such a wonderful experience to share with you, to come together, to engage with our community near and far. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, for those of you who are here weekly, we are always happy to be together. And I have to say, this is our 8th week doing this, and I've been so moved weekly by the different approaches that each of our wonderful artists have taken. It's not surprising since you were all about the original creative process, but it really does remind us of the importance of art and the range and just the multiplicity of expression and how really integral it is to sort of the human experience. So weekly, I think we get to see that unfold before our eyes, and weekly it brings us inspiration and it brings us hope. And through the arts, I think we would all agree that we are always creating, that we are always reimagining, and in this world that needs a little bit of love and attention right now, the arts remain our lifeline and our hopeful inspiration. And so all of this leads me to tonight's artist who, as we will learn about, works closely with young people, with our future generation, with those who will hopefully bravely steer this ship through these incredibly tumultuous waters. And so I'd like to introduce Michelle Asarch, who is originally from Long Island. She is an artist and art educator who lives and works in Washington Heights. While her early work included experimentation with a variety of mediums like ceramics, bronze, photography, and wax, Michelle is deeply passionate about drawing and painting the human figure. Her aesthetic connection to the body is tied to her contemplation and reflection on the human condition in all its facets. Her figure studies, imbued with contrast between light and shade, are meditations and essays on the inherent complexities of the human being. Through her work, she explores deeply personal themes, drawing from her own, sometimes painful experiences, but also from a deep sense of empathy and compassion. These themes also inform her teaching. She is currently the sole art educator at Bria College Prep in Mott Haven, teaching K through 4 students, where she encourages them to explore ideas of identity and community, of personal reflection and expression. She has also worked with teen students at City Art Lab in Harlem and the Art Studio New York on the Upper West Side. She has noted that making her art with her students and allowing them to see parts of themselves instill in her, even during the most difficult moments, a deep sense of pride and determination. I am so pleased to introduce Michelle tonight, who is here to share her personal trajectory with us through a deeply personal look at her art and process. Michelle.
Thank you so much. It is just such an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all tonight and to talk about my artwork. And like you said, right now, this is definitely a week. This is definitely a strange time we're living in, but I think that art is one of those things that brings communities together, allows people to express what they're feeling and communicate what they're experiencing. So I love that I can be both an artist and an art teacher to help instill these thoughts and passions, as well as kind of therapeutic advantages come from art with the younger generation. So I'm just so happy to be here with you all tonight and can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Michelle. So Michelle's prepared a video, which I'm going to share with you now. And as you're watching, if you can think of any questions or clarifications or anything you'd like to ask her, please add your question to the chat box. And after the presentation, we'll be going through the questions and you'll be able to ask your question at that time. So.
Michelle Asarch, and it is such an honor to be with you all and tell you a little bit about myself. I am originally from Long Island, but I am a Washington Heights resident. Have been for the last about 5 years.
Can we start that again? It's a little bit low. And there we go.
Can you hear?
It's a bit low.
Yeah, it's a little low.
Hi, my name is Michelle Asarch, and it is such an honor to be showing my artwork to you all and telling you a little bit about myself. Hi, my name is Michelle Asarch, and it is such an honor to be showing my artwork to you all and telling you a little bit about myself. I am originally
doing that. Oh,
Washington Heights resident.
she speaketh and I can't
Some sound issues.
hear her, and it's annoying me.
Michelle, would you be able to share this directly? I'm sorry for our test. The sound worked a lot better. Michelle, are you you're able to share, or would you like me to fiddle with our settings here?
If you're able to fiddle with the settings, okay, that would be awesome.
All right. Our all the way up. Let's see how we can amplify this.
Michelle, while you're pulling, Michelle Orsi-Gordon, while you're pulling up the volume on that, let me just remind folks that please join us again next Thursday, June 25th at 7:30, when we will have Elizabeth Loris Ritter, who's on Zoom with us tonight, the chair of Manhattan Community Board 12's Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee. Liz will share with us an intimate glimpse from the cavalcade of artwork that she has purchased over 17 Uptown art strolls in northern Manhattan. So we'll have a chance to see Liz Ritter's artwork collection of Uptown artists next Thursday, June 25th at 7:30. So please join us again on Zoom or Facebook Live. And for info, it is artstroll.com.
Hi, my name is Michelle Asarch, and it is such an honor to be showing my artwork to you all and telling you a little bit about myself. I am originally from Long Island, but I am a Washington Heights resident, have been for the last about 5 years. I went to college studying English literature and studio art, but originally thought I was going to go into law. Took 3 days of Latin and said no. Took a semester of philosophy on law and morality and said definitely no. And the thing that I really found joy in was making artwork. And it wasn't something that I had ever had like a natural talent for. It was never something I had excelled in school. It wasn't until high school when I really started to tap into that creativity and allow myself to just kind of let go. And it wasn't until high school that I really discovered drawing figures. I do the most amount of artwork as figure studies. I have done drawing, painting, photography, ceramics, digital artwork, as well as I've worked with clay, I've worked with wax, I've worked with bronze, and I find that I really enjoy coming back to acrylic paint and to drawing, as well as I'm getting more into digital art over all of this, so I'm trying to figure out how an iPad works. This piece I called Blue Period after taking some inspiration from Pablo Picasso's Blue Period. As an art educator, that's something that almost any school administration wants you to teach. And this piece made me really think about the misogyny that's inlaid in our culture. And Pablo Picasso was not great to women in his life. He really did not treat them kindly. And this piece was really me kind of pondering that and pondering the misogyny that's so prevalent in our culture and our society. And when you look at this piece, which is on blue toned paper with pastel pencils as well as white pastel and new pastel, and you look at it and the stomach, the arms are so soft that you feel like you could reach out and touch them. The fingers aren't really detailed. You don't see the face at all. There's nothing on the face, but it's not something that you even recognize immediately. The eye really isn't intended to go there first, and it kind of ties into the way that as a society we view people. The next piece is actually a piece of digital art that I'm working on, and as an art educator, one thing that I really enjoy is being able to show the process of how I create something, and I do this a lot in my teaching. Right now I'm working with elementary school students, and I really enjoy showing them my own artwork, and this was a really powerful piece for me. One, because it was an entirely new medium. This was maybe the third or fourth piece that I had tried drawing with an iPad, with Procreate and an Apple Pencil, and really just trying to figure out how it worked and how I wanted to use it as a new medium. And I think this was also really important for me because it really just went over the same area again and again and again. And you'll notice in this that I rework the same area, the same feature a few different times. And it's a little bit of a perfectionist of me, and two, it's really kind of accepting failure as an artist and knowing, okay, sometimes something isn't going to work out, or it's not going to work the way you want it to, or you get a brand new sketchbook and you're like, I need this to all be perfect, and then the first page has a drawing that you're really unsatisfied with. And just allowing yourself to occasionally fail, I think that that's one of the biggest parts of being an artist. This is a piece that's called Torso, and in it I really wanted to emphasize the contrast between highlights and shadows, as well as the left and the right side. When I was younger, about 12, 13 years ago, I was diagnosed with having spinal stenosis, which meant that they took an MRI and they found that two of the bones in the back of my neck, C1 and C2, had actually grown apart and defused from one another. None of the surgeons that we spoke to had ever seen anything like it. and they didn't really know what to call it because it was so outside of the realm of what they'd seen, especially in a young kid. So from that, there was nerve damage that is still prevalent down my entire left side, meaning that using my arm, walking, it's not always noticeable because, after years you find ways to hide it. But a lot of my art kind of taps into that contrast between the left and the right, between, functioning and presenting versus non. And I think this piece really exemplifies that. It really shows the angles, it shows the juxtaposition between them. And this piece I actually sent to the neurosurgeon who performed the surgeries on me when I was younger, so that he would have something to kind of remind him of the work that he did in helping, save a young kid's life when the kid is however old I was and being told, yeah, if you're in a car and the car's jostled, you're gonna die. So, after being in a medical halo for 3 months, neck brace for a year, physical and occupational therapy for 8 years, I think a lot of my art really shows that contrast, and I think this piece really exemplifies that. The next piece is called Waiting, and the last piece and this one were both done with the same material of charcoal, pastel pencil, and pastel. The previous piece was done on white paper, and this piece was done on toned paper. Both of the images are based off of photos that were taken by me of different models, and this picture really exemplifies once again that contrast between the left and the right. And there are points where the shading could have been more smooth, the transitions could have been more curved, but I really wanted to have those harsh highlights, those harsh shadows, especially on the thighs, on the stomach, and really some parts are soft and comfortable and some parts truly don't look realistic, and that's the way that I wanted to portray it, to kind of show unease. So with everything going on, I think that my artwork really tries to show that we're all experiencing different things. We're all human, and we need to be empathetic towards one another. And I think that's really kind of where I want to leave off is I really hope you guys enjoy my artwork. I have had so much fun showing this to you guys, and I hope that you're all staying safe and sane, and I look forward to meeting with you guys in person during that Q&A. Bye.
Really struck by the vulnerability in your work, that there's sort of the contrast between the light and shade is sort of a metaphor also for the light and shade in our own lives, and sort of how you try to reconcile that in your own trajectory. I wonder, you said that you gave this drawing to your neurosurgeon, and I'm so interested in learning or hearing about what the neurosurgeon said, what the reaction was. I always find the connections between the medical community and the artistic community to be so strong. We sort of think of them as separate entities sometimes, but the same concerns about the body and healing the body and exposing the body and sort of using the body really as our guide are really special these times. So if you could tell us a little bit about what the neurosurgeon said, I think that would be really interesting to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually went to see the neurosurgeons a couple of years back, just to kind of follow up. And one of the neurosurgeons had actually kept the invitation that I had sent for my bat mitzvah that I had sent to him. And he had kept that on his desk because as a surgeon, he was kind of, cut and you walk on to the next patient. But because it was such a unique circumstance, he and his partner needed to keep bringing me in every month and keep doing follow-ups. And he was at the start of his career, but now you know, he said that he looks back on it as, you know, the time that he had to learn how to build relationships with one of his patients. And that really struck me as this awful thing in my life was such a positive growing experience for him, where he was able to use what happened and become, you know, even better with his patients and with his work. I don't know if he received it or if it got lost in the mail. I still don't know. But I basically sent it to him and said, okay, I'm not going to ask if you like it or not. I hope you like it, but I'm not going to ask. So hopefully he likes it.
That's so interesting. Did you find that you were drawn more to the body after your experiences, or was it a sort of a simultaneous kind of coming together, or how did one inform the other?
I think that it started out as, you know, I was very limited in what I could do. I was lucky that, you know, it was my left side that took the damage, and I've always been a right-handed artist, but it really limited what I could do. I couldn't play sports anymore, and I was very much like a tomboy growing up. I couldn't really go outside and be as active. And so what that brought me to was, okay, what can I still do? What am I still capable of? And, you know, it didn't really strike me as anything until later that I kept gravitating towards drawing figures and looking at figures from profile versus straight on with symmetry and asymmetry, and the way that that balance has always been interesting to me. It never even struck me until recently that I like to draw in black and white, and primarily black and white throughout, you know, up until about 3 years ago. It was almost entirely black and white, because I was constantly looking at that contrast and kind of seeing everything almost like an MRI scan, and really seeing that black and white breakdown of, if you hold it up to a light, you see things differently, but it's very flattened, but three-dimensional in its own way. And I think a lot of my renderings of drawings really try to take that on.
Yeah, that's so interesting. How sometimes those things just kind of evolve out of a process, even just your own sort of personal experience. We have a question from Rosa. Rosa, are you here? Would you like to ask your question?
Hi, it's pretty basic. I see a painting behind you. Is that yours? What is that? Can you tell us something about it?
Oh, I wish. We bought it on Amazon. Oh, I wish. I think I'm very shy about hanging up my own artwork, because whenever I have a piece of my own artwork on the wall, I start looking at it critically and noticing, oh, I should have changed that. Oh, I should have done this differently. And I'm constantly doubting myself. So I like to have images where I didn't make them, unless they're, you know, right over my workspace, so I can go right in and edit them. But I'm glad you like it. Can post the Amazon link later if you're interested.
No, that's fine. I do want to say one more thing. I really value the honesty of sharing your physical experience. It's not easy to do, and I really respect you for doing that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. One thing that I've always kept with me is in my teaching, I once had a 13-year-old student. In his 13 years, he had about 20 different neck and spine surgeries done on him. And he worked with me, and he was incredibly talented. And one day he turned to me and he saw the way that I was turning my neck, and he goes, "Michelle, is your neck okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, you know, I've had a few surgeries myself." He goes, "But you're okay now." And I go, "Yeah, I'm okay now." And he goes, "Okay." And that was the entire interaction. But in that, I still think back to, you know, he was going through so much, and seeing someone who had experienced what he had and was okay talking about it, not trying to repress anything or, you know, scare him. I think that really stayed with me. So I try to be as communicative and open about my experiences as I can.
Thank you.
For your question. I think we have another question from Charles. Charles, are you here?
Yes, I was just wondering about how do you feel about the difference between digital and physical media, I guess, how you capture things differently?
So for the record, Charles is my boyfriend. He's sitting across from me. But he's a big supporter. I think for traditional versus digital, I think tactile is a big element. So a lot of being able to reach out and touch it, and with charcoal moving it, or with acrylic or oil paint, really feeling the three-dimensionality of it versus on an iPad. It takes so much more to really create that, but it can do so many different things. So it's so fun to be able to see all of those different pros and cons of using the different medium. And it's almost like using clay versus using pencil, and seeing that you can get such an amazing result from both, and kind of seeing the tips and tricks for both.
Welcome, Charles. We appreciate you being here tonight. We have another question from Martin. Martin, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you. I wanted to ask how 2020 and all that has happened has influenced your art.
Oh, that's a strong one. It's definitely been a lot. It's, you know, in terms of my art, I feel like the last few months, I don't know about everyone else, it has been so hard to create because everything is so static and everything is at such a standstill that creating and trying to find beauty in it feels like it's so hard, and sometimes going in an uphill battle. So it's been a lot, but I think a big way that I've gotten through it is really through my art and through my students' art, because even when I'm exhausted, I feel like I'm at the end of my rope. Seeing them light up when they learn something new really drives me. And this piece with the eyes, I actually showed them, was when I was working on my senior thesis for my master's degree. And this, I think, pretty much sums up a thesis class. And I showed it to my students, and I'm like, yeah, do you ever feel this way? And they were like, oh, you're an adult and you feel that way sometimes too, because it kind of said what we couldn't say to each other through that image. Mm-hmm. So it was really amazing to be able to talk about that and be vulnerable through our artwork, and then them making kind of response pieces to that. And so I had a few students over time who would just draw pictures of eyes to show me how they were feeling. And that was really powerful for me. Yeah, this is some of my student work from my current students at Bria. These are some third graders, and I'm still just so proud looking at what they've done, because they made three-dimensional looking buildings on scratch art paper that they made themselves with a watercolor resist background, using crayons and paints, and using figure drawing to make their own superhero selfies of what type of superhero they would want to be if they could be any superhero. So it just, I still look at it and it blows me away.
Thank you.
That's great. I think, Donna, you're here. You have a few really nice observations that you make, and I think you had a couple of questions. Would you like to ask Michelle your questions or share your observations? I think you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Okay. I was just going to say that I was really blown away by the contrast, the use of contrast, the use of figure. The renderings are very powerful, and the compositions are really amazing to think, just with renderings of the eye, that one can create such a piercing piece of artwork. The student work was delightful. It's absolutely charming. I used to teach art many years ago, and I am a graduate of FIT, and I'm a textile designer, so I'm really enjoying what you guys are doing. I love it. I'm so impressed with Michelle's work. This is the first time I've gotten to see your program, and thank you so much for sharing the invitation. It's just very refreshing and very encouraging. So Thank you. Michelle, keep on making beautiful art, and all of you in the art world, keep on making beautiful art. Your words don't need to be expressed in writing because your visual elements are just so powerful and meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. We're so happy you're here, and we hope you will join us again and again. I really liked your observation about the fabric. You were talking about. Yes, would you like to share that? And then I think Stan, who I guess was with you before, also had a question too. So maybe those are two you might want to share and ask.
Right. So we've got a little viewing group over here, and we're just looking at all of this wonderful art. And Stan's question was in relation to does having a new pet influence what you're doing? And before you answer his question, I wanted to go back to this piece and thank you for queuing up the piece of the figure drawn in the sheer fabric, because the rendering of this piece is quite extraordinary. And to me, it's almost like you're peeling away the layers, but you're still keeping you've got that sheer fabric. And it's almost like there's a very small barrier that remains between with what you're willing to share and with what you are exposing. And quite frankly, the figure is quite exposed, but there's still a little reserve.
Thank you. And this piece really, I think this piece really felt like more of a sculpture than a drawing to create it. It felt like carving out the highlights, carving out the shadows, those really rich blacks, really pressing down hard with the pastel. Felt like I was sculpting the form to be three-dimensional of having that, the foreground of the fabric, and just beyond that with some transparency is the figure. And I want to say this piece took me around like 30 hours. I think I spent that just like in a meditative space, just in my room, my studio, just going at it. I think it was last summer, and every day I would work on it for like 4 or 5 hours and just try to sculpt at it and get it as close as I could to accurate from the model who I photographed to take it. And I think this was most time that I had spent really looking not just at the figure, but the surroundings of the figure. So yes, really not just looking at the person, but seeing the environmental factors and the kind of what builds up a person is what's around them and who is around them. So having the walls, having the book, I think it was an Oscar Wilde's play book that she had with her. And it was really just trying to see the whole person, not just what they present as, but who they are. So thank you for noticing all of those details.
If I may further comment, when you refer to the environment that the model is in, the contrast between her figure and the softness of her figure and the softness of the fabric, and her face has a softness, but yet there's a pained look. The angular walls make it so striking because they're rigid, they're not forgiving, they don't bend, but she does. And it's just such a wonderful contrast and a statement. Thank you. Really powerful.
I think you need to start writing my marketing from now on. I think you need to be the one in charge of that for me.
Well, when I had to write my critiques, I always got really good marks.
That's wonderful. Any other questions? I'm thinking, Michelle, I sort of had a follow-up question. You mean talking about the figure and listening to all of Donna's observations. I'm curious, what artists influence you? Who sort of, over the years, or who are you drawn to? Who's, worked on the human figure, on anatomy, have inspired or influenced you, or who are you in dialogue with?
Absolutely. I think that it's kind of a strange hodgepodge. I think on the one hand, I've studied a lot of anatomy textbooks, and my college roommate was a nursing major, and I would occasionally borrow her books to draw from. I looked at a lot of Albert Durer's prints and his drawings to kind of study that rendering a lot of the time through his printmaking to see how he would carve out the shadows. I've looked a lot at the work of Kehinde Wiley, and I actually teach him at least once a year to my students and really study his figure drawings and figure paintings really constantly. I'm constantly seeing like any further back paintings he's done. And one of my peers that I used to actually teach with at the art studio, her name is Shiva Maya. And if you look her up, she really helped birth the start of this movement that she calls Afrofuturism, where it's a lot of different women with like shades and colors. She did a whole series on Huevember, where every day of November she used a different hue to create a portrait based on. And she asked a lot of her friends and families if they could contribute pictures of themselves that she could work from as references. So that was really inspiring to me. Like, oh, I want to reach out to the people around me to ask them if I can draw them. And, you know, even if it sounds weird, saying, hey, can I come take pictures of you to draw? More friends than I thought originally would be down really were accepting. So it was really, I think those three artists are the ones who really helped form my, almost like that rendering in my head of what I see, because I'm ridiculous. When I think of myself and my creativity, I don't really think of myself as having imagination. And I laugh at myself for that, but I'm also like, no, when I'm drawing something, I see what's in front of me and I don't imagine different things. Like I just see what's there, and then whatever happens is kind of what feels right. And it doesn't feel like I'm picturing something different. If I'm looking at a scene and I'm drawing it, it just kind of, the different pieces interlock in my mind. And that's always been very strange to me when my kids are talking about like, oh, I have, you know, I don't know what to draw. Like, no, you have something there. It might not be a full image yet, but all of the pieces are going to build together as you go. So a lot of what I do for my own teaching is informed by my own art practice.
I love hearing about sort of all of those influences too, and sort of pulling also again from, you know, the sort of anatomy books and the scientific texts, and again this sort of preoccupation with the body. It's also really interesting, I think, you know, looking at the nude through the gaze of a woman, right? Or sort of even, you know, a female artist. I'm always struck. I talk a lot about Artemisia Gentileschi, of course, and one of the things that was so interesting about her works, especially I'm thinking of one of her particular paintings, Susanna and the Elders, shows her, you know, I was reminded a little bit of that when I was looking at one of your works, you know, seeing the body and how shocking her work was for the 17th century viewer, because not that the nude was unheard of, not that the nude hadn't been depicted, but that the nude was depicted from the perspective of a woman, right? Oh, thanks, Michelle. I knew you'd do that. And you know, looking at, that's not it. You had it before. That's Rainey's. But no, but keep that up because I think that's interesting. So here's Artemisia's here, right? This is Guido Reni. This is, you know, from the perspective of the male gaze, right? And so when you put up now Artemisia, this image here, that, you know, that was considered so shocking, right? Because it looked like a female form, right? And it wasn't, you know, drawn sort of, you know, from the imagination of the man. It was drawn from the perspective of a woman who understood what her body and female bodies looked like. So it's so, you know, it sort of here's Rainey's and sort of in contrast. So such a, you know, it's so interesting because, you know, even the drapery and sort of, again, Donna, what you were referring to, that sort of concealing and revealing and the vulnerability and the exposure, you know, it creates, it's such a, you know, it's such a powerful sort of perspective, right? Sort of looking at the female body in this way. Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So yeah, so anyway, that's that's really wonderful. It's nice to, I think, to see that form in that way. I think we had another question here, and I want to make sure I get to it here. Okay, Regina, I think you have a question.
Yes, welcome to Upper Manhattan, a neighborhood filled with artists. And I was just wondering about how you feel living here.
I mean, it's been pretty fantastic. Right now, I'm up in Parkchester during all of the quarantine things going on, but it's so vibrant as a community, and it's such a great community to be a part of, because Washington Heights is so interesting in all of the different cultures that are present. And as a member of the Jewish community in Washington Heights, but still wanting to be active, because I do see that there is a big divide racially in Washington Heights, and I want to do what I can to help, that situation. I know that that's a lot for one person to try to say that I want to help with, but taking my master's degree in Harlem and really having a lot of what I do as an art teacher be based on anti-racism curriculum, and really trying to have students really from as young as kindergarten. When I see them right now, I want to be able to talk about them when we do self-portraits, saying, hey, here are some different ways that we can make different shades of skin color. There is no right or wrong way to do this. Whatever feels right for you. Everyone is beautiful and unique in their own way. And it's really beautiful to see them. And I have students every year that are like, I'm going to make myself, bright green. I'm like, okay, if that's how you feel comfortable and that's what makes you feel empowered, I want you to go for it. I want you to depict yourself how you see yourself. And these middle school artworks you have right now, this was actually done based on a Kahinda Wiley project with my students at City Art Lab in Harlem. And we really looked at, who's someone that you want to see depicted in a museum that you haven't seen depicted before, and what's a powerful pose that you can draw them in. So thinking about different powerful poses and different kind of cultural understandings of what power can look like and what different poses can mean to different people, really let them explore. A few of them really decided to go for drawing themselves, which I think the middle two were focused more on. And the ones on the end, he kind of had an abstract idea of who he wants to become, of someone that was both done by the same individual. And it was a really fantastic discussion looking at Wiley's work and then really discussing, okay, how can you depict yourself as a way that makes you or your figure feel powerful? And who's someone that walking around the Met you haven't seen before that you want to see now? So that was such a powerful moment for me and for them, because it really got a lot of discussion, a lot of communication happening between a lot of students from different walks of life. And that was really a beautiful moment for me.
Thank you.
It seems like just the right time tonight to be talking about the younger generation, right? It's heartening to listen to some of these young minds, and especially right now. And here's Michelle with another. There we go. So just to give the context and the perspective. So that's such a great question, as you walk through the museums, who's missing, what are you not seeing, and what does that mean, right? So that we think about all of those challenges, and these are great.
And I'm sorry, looking at these, it reminds me, I had a student who, she came from Mexico about 2 years ago, and she was already in 3rd grade. And when she came to our school last year, she didn't really speak a lot of English. My Spanish is not great, but she was a very strong visual learner. So we would look at different pictures together, and then I would show her something and have to draw something, and then she would replicate. When we did this project, she decided she wanted to draw her cousin who was back in Mexico, because she's someone that she looks up to. And she spoke to me, and she was like a very, very shy girl, a few months ago. And she said, I really look up to her. I want to go visit her, but she's very powerful, and I want to be like her when I grow up. And it was such a powerful moment, especially having other teachers in the school say, oh yeah, that student doesn't speak at all, and you're not going to have any luck with her. Like, no, art is its own language, and you need to be open to people who have different experiences than you, and you need to try to meet them where they are to have an honest communicative conversation. And I still have her drawing with me. She said I could keep it. And it really is a powerful reminder for the work that I do and the language that art is.
I think, Dawn, I think you had a follow-up question. We were talking about the young generation.
Yes, there were a couple of observations. I think one thing that's really interesting is that we come to the art from the perspective of the times in which we were born and raised. So the figure drawing, as you were showing the pictures, given the context and given the context of the times in which we live, it changes the way we address the figure, the way we think about the figure, what is acceptable in a society, and how people look at those figures and consider what is art and what is pornography become a question. And then you also have the aspect of gender fluidity that is so important as we're learning that more and more people around us are making choices about their bodies and who they really are. So I think these are all very important questions, and I really admire the way that you are addressing the body, the gender fluidity. And the last comment about the student that was here from Mexico and is only in 3rd grade, it hurts me as a former teacher when other teachers write children off, and it's so painful. And they're looking at people and writing them off for their own reasons, not recognizing the depth of the person that they're working with, and that we have layers, we have so much to offer, so much more than just the spoken word.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I had a student when I was at the art studio who was, and the first day that they came in, their introduction said, "Hi, this is my name. I go by they, them pronouns. Please keep that in mind." And one of the other teachers in my studio just kept on going and kept misgendering this person. And it gets to the point where when we were doing our artwork, we were making diptychs, meaning, 2 different pieces of art. And we were looking at a little bit of Andy Warhol. And this person actually drew one figure that was more male presenting with more male identified, colors. And then next to it, a more female identified colors with more female presenting body, and put those 2 together and said, this is how I feel when someone misgenders me. And like went straight at the other teacher, and the entire time I'm and I actually didn't think that this student even remembered me, but a year later I actually got a note that they had dropped off, said, "Hi, this is for Michelle. Just wanted to leave this because, I really always appreciated this." And I almost started crying because it's in the little positive things that we do. It's not always a big moment. It's just using someone's proper pronouns, treating them with dignity. And like you're saying, seeing them for who they are, not deficit-based, not seeing them as what we think they should be or what we think that they will be. It's who they are and where they are.
That, and thanks for the question, and thanks so much for this conversation. Really a lot to think about and a lot to hope about, and it was really wonderful to hear about your personal journey and your mentoring of these young minds and these young spirits and these young creative spirits. I'd like to move now to our rapid fire question segment of the evening. And so, Michelle, I think if you've seen this before, you know that I will put up some cue cards and just ask you some questions for you to answer sort of off the cuff, whatever comes to mind. So we'll go through that, and they're just kind of a fun way to sort of end our night. So if you're ready, we'll get going.
All right.
Ready?
Let's do it.
So good. All right. So since we've talked a lot about this, you've talked a lot about sort of self-referentiality. You've talked a lot about self-portraits and your own work and your own journey. Here's a question. What would be the title of your biography?
Oh, One Serious Potato.
I like that. Okay. That works. Okay. So here's a sort of a follow-up that might work with that. What do you find funny?
Oh, life in general. I think it's hard not to go through life without finding a sense of humor, and a dark sense of humor at that. So I refer to myself as a potato all the time, of just, kind of not sure what I'm doing, but kind of trying my best. And sometimes it turns out like a hot potato. Sometimes it's a jacket potato. Like, sometimes it's just mashed potatoes. Mashed
potatoes, I was going to say. Okay, very good. All right. Okay, so this is kind of an oldie but goodie, but I always think that this gives a lot of sort of dimension. All right, the dinner party, 3 guests. Who's coming? What are you serving? They can be dead or alive, fictional or real. Tell me about this party.
All right, I think I would have Ray Bradbury, Edgar Allan Poe, and my father, all 3 no longer with us, all 3 brilliant individuals. In terms of what I'm serving, anything that I'm not cooking. I'm a terrible cook. I can bake, but I cannot cook. So as long as it's not anything that I'm making, I think they'll be perfectly happy.
Sounds good. That sounds good. Okay. What are you looking forward to the most post-quarantine?
Honestly, giving my students a hug. Like, it sounds so cheesy, and now I'm a potato with cheese, but I just really miss so many of them, and I just want to see them in person and see how they're doing, because it's not the same seeing them on a camera.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I'm sure they feel the same. Okay, what is on your nightstand?
Oh, let's see. I have a book light so that I can read at all hours. I am a voracious reader. I have, a few different of my dog's toys, because he has gone through 4 different toys that he's already destroyed in the past 2 weeks. He is a voracious chewer, just like I'm a reader. Have, if I'm being honest right now, a giant package of Chips Ahoy cookies. And I think I have a little journal sketchbook with a few different tones of pages with a white gel pen and a black pen, so that I can quickly sketch and write down any weird dreams that I had.
Oh, wow. I feel like this is a big table next to you.
Thank God for IKEA.
All right. Okay. You're stuck on a boat and you have all of your essentials. What are you most grateful for not forgetting at home? What do you have with you that you are so happy to have?
I think the biggest size sketchbook that they sell at Blick. I think if I had like watercolor pencils and, I could use water from this island paint with, that'd be awesome. And I think I would probably need a few bottles of sunscreen.
Sounds good. Okay. Invisibility or ability to fly?
I think ability to fly. Invisibility always seems a little sketchy to me. Like they're going to the women's locker room or something. And I've had a lot of people tell me that's their choice and why. I like the idea of being able to fly and just kind of move around as much as I can and see the world.
Okay, what is your favorite place in New York City or Uptown?
Oh, I think right underneath the George Washington Bridge, that little red lighthouse that's there. I went once during a huge snowstorm, which I will note is a very bad idea. Don't do that. But it was completely desolate. No one else was there, because no one else would be that ridiculous to do such thing in the middle of a snowstorm. But it was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop, you could hear the snow falling and hitting the other snow, and the little red lighthouse being covered in that snow still gives me goosebumps.
Okay, final question. What is your motto or your words to live by?
Oh, I think it's got to be find something humorous in the situation. The number of awful situations that I've been in where I've just really gotten through it with humor of, you know, a few years ago, my dad passing and the different experience I've had with medical trauma, really like with a doctor one-on-one, just making jokes with them to be able to get through the situation. You know, my mom always making the joke, you know, she's wearing the medical halo to, you know, hide her little devil horns, which is finding the humor in a weird situation. So it's definitely been my motto.
I think we could all use a little bit of laughter right now. So I think those are wonderful wonderful parting words for us. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being here tonight. Thanks to all of you for being here, for sharing, for engaging, for asking such interesting questions, and for tonight's conversation.
I'm very not happy about that.
Before we go, I would like to thank again the Inwood Animal Clinic, the Department of Cultural Affairs, SBS, Inwood Merchants Association, Heights Sites, and Uptown Collective. And before we go, I wanted to turn the mic over again to Martin, who will, as he opened, will close with a few words about our programming and some previews and some announcements. So Martin, if you'd like to take the floor.
Thank you, Neria. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We invite you to please read the Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance newsletter on our website, NoMAAnyc.org, for a complete listing of artist opportunities, events, and upcoming open studios. There's a 3-question survey going to pop up on your screen from our executive coordinator, Michelle Asarch. Please take a moment to give your feedback on tonight's program. We very much want to hear from you. We also encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to please complete your 2020 census. You can do so online. The website is my2020census.gov. And the Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance, their census coloring contest deadline is this Saturday, June 20th. It comes at a $50 award, so we encourage the kids who this is really targeted for to get their entries in by the end of the day this coming Saturday. Our Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer, will have a town hall with community boards 9, 10, 11, and 12 about the reopening process in New York City. And we encourage everybody to join the borough president and city agencies this Monday, June 22nd at 6 p.m. You can go to the borough president's website to register and to submit your questions in advance of the town hall. A couple of events this Saturday, June 20th, Drums Along the Hudson. It'll be virtual at 4 p.m. Visit their website, lotusmusicanddance.org for the details. Also this Saturday, June 20th, our good partners at Word Up, it's their 9th anniversary. Word Up Community Book Club will have author Rob Snyder, the author of Crossing Broadway, and others join them. And please visit Word Up's website for details on their event this Saturday, June 20th. Our colleague, Patricia Miranda, on Monday, June 29th, she will have a seminar for writing about your art today. It's a hand-on workshop for artists. Please RSVP on our website, NoMAAnyc.org, for the Monday, June 29th workshop with Patricia Miranda. Finally, our colleagues, there's 15 Uptown Arts organizations that are participants in the Uptown Arts and Culture Summer Camps. There's 2 sessions, July 6th to the 17th and July 20th through the 31st. Please see our website, NoMAAnyc.org, for information. And again, a reminder, join us next Thursday, June 25th at 7:30, when the dynamic Liz Ritter will join us with a cavalcade of her paintings purchased at art strolls over the past 17 years in Northern Manhattan. Neria, back to you.
Wow. Great job, Martin. Thank you so much for that very comprehensive look at what we can all look forward to. We appreciate that. Once again, thank you all for being here. Michelle, welcome to your new dog, your new puppy. He's very cute. This was a wonderful evening, and really thank you for being here with us tonight. Thanks to everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next week.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Right.